Daniel Ward's alarm clock buzzed at 4:47 a.m., like it had every day since his wife died. He was 32, a single father of one, and he ran his life like a drill sergeant, militant, precise, calculated. The house on Sycamore Street in Newark, New Jersey, was quiet except for the occasional floor creak from his 10-year-old daughter Emily, shifting in her sleep. Daniel hadn't always been this way. Before Mary died in 1981, he was a laid-back mechanic with oil-stained fingers and a stubborn optimism. But cancer changed that. Losing Mary had hardened him. Now everything revolved around Emily, her safety, her future, her every move. He made breakfast in silence. 2 eggs over easy, toast, half a grapefruit. By 5:15 a.m., he was outside in the driveway, warming up the Impala he refused to sell, even when the money was tight. At 6:30, he kissed Emily on the forehead, whispered, "Be good," and left for work at Harmon's garage, a 30-minute drive. That was the last time anyone saw Daniel Ward. The police were slow to react. It was 1985, men left sometimes. A few days without contact didn't raise many alarms. His car was found the next morning in a Walmart parking lot 5 miles away, keys still in the ignition. No signs of a struggle, wallet still in the glove compartment. And nothing in his bank account had been touched. Emily, confused and terrified, was shuffled between relatives like a borrowed book. Her uncle Terry Ward stepped in and filed a missing persons report, but his efforts were met with bureaucratic shrugs and hollow promises. Men disappear, the detective had said. Could have cracked under pressure, burned out. But that didn't make sense. Daniel left no note, no warning, no indication of anything out of place. Until 3 weeks later, Emily had been staying at Terry's house, sleeping on a pull-out sofa. One night she woke up to a sound in the hallway. 3 short knocks on the front door. Terry was out cold from the 2 Budweisers he had before bed, so Emily padded softly across the floor and peeked out the living room blinds. There was a man at the door. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a navy coat and a cap pulled down low. He didn't knock again, just stood there, not moving. After a minute he turned and walked away. The next morning Emily told Terry. He brushed it off. Dream kiddo, probably just a bum. But she didn't imagine it. She remembered the shape of the man's jaw, the way his boots echoed on the concrete porch. Weeks passed, then months. Eventually the cops stopped calling. The garage Daniel worked at changed hands. His name faded from conversation. Emily learned quickly that the world kept spinning, even when yours stopped. By age 12, she was living with her Aunt Marie in Pennsylvania. Marie was strict, but stable. Emily had her own room, clean clothes and food on the table. But she missed her dad like a phantom limb. She stopped talking about him. He hurt too much. Until 1987. It was the summer before high school. Emily was in the attic, rummaging through old boxes for a photo album for a school project. Inside a taped cardboard box marked Ward Family, 1970s, she found a folded envelope. No name, no address, just a crumpled Polaroid. She unfolded it slowly. In the photo was a blurry shot of a man, dark hair, standing at the end of a dock near a lake. He was wearing the same navy coat from that night at Terry's house. The date scribbled on the back, September 14, 1985, 2 weeks after Daniel vanished. Her hands trembled. She ran downstairs yelling for Aunt Marie. Marie looked at the photo, then sighed. "I didn't want to tell you, Em. Terry said you saw someone at the door. We didn't believe you. Why would he come back and not say anything?" Emily asked, eyes wide. "I don't know, sweetheart," Marie said. "Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was just someone who looked like him." Emily wasn't convinced. She carried that photo with her everywhere. It became a totem, proof that her father didn't abandon her, that he might still be alive. That same summer, she rode her bike to the library and pored over every newspaper archive she could find from September '85. She looked for missing persons reports, break-ins, stolen vehicles, anything that could connect. One article caught her eye. Unknown man found sleeping at Lakeside Motel. No ID, uncooperative. It was in a town called Lakeden, 2 counties away. The man had refused to give his name. When police came, he bolted. That was it. He no follow-up. Lakeden was only an hour and a half from Marie's house. Emily made a note of it. The photo, the man, the motel. But the adults never followed her curiosity. Life resumed its routine. By the time she was 15, she had joined the school newspaper. By 17, she had a job after school. She dated, smiled, pretended. But that photo never left the inside of her wallet. She would lie awake some nights, wondering what he had seen, what had made him leave. Had someone hurt him? Had he suffered a breakdown? Was he even alive anymore? She vowed to find out, even if it took her whole life. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. The year was 2001, and Emily Ward was 26 years old. She was working as a case manager at a halfway house in Trenton, New Jersey. Her days were filled with forms, rehab appointments, and helping people rebuild their lives. She was good at it too, but every time she saw a man in a flannel coat with tired eyes and nowhere to go, her mind wandered. Could that be him? Could that be my dad? She had never let go of the photo, the one of the man by the lake. It lived in a plastic sleeve in her wallet, worn at the edges but still sharp enough to stir the same question every time she looked at it. By then she had learned how to track people, not as a job but as a quiet obsession. She'd taught herself how to pull property records, check missing persons databases, file FOIA requests. Her apartment wall was half covered with sticky notes and newspaper clippings. Red ink circled around keywords like Laketon, 1985, dock, motel, mental evaluation. It all kept circling back to Laketon. So one crisp October morning, she took time off work, packed a duffel bag, and drove northeast, chasing the ghost of a man who had disappeared 16 years ago. Laketon wasn't much, just a faded town with shuttered shops and a diner called Connie's Grill that still used paper menus. She started there. Emily ordered coffee she didn't really want and asked the waitress, a gray-haired woman with a smoker's cough, if she'd lived in town long. Too long, the woman chuckled, pouring more coffee. Emily pulled out the photo. Have you ever seen this man? The waitress squinted. Hard to say. That's old. Looks like it was taken down by Pine Hill Lake. My ex-husband used to fish there. Was there ever a motel out there? The woman nodded slowly. Used to be. Cedar Pines Motel. It burned down back in 87 or 88, I think. Don't know what happened to the guy who ran it. Weird fella. Do you know if any police reports were made about a man found sleeping there around 1985? The woman stared at her for a second. You're looking for someone, huh? My father, Emily said. He vanished in 85. This is the only lead I've got. The waitress grew quiet. You might want to talk to Pete, retired sheriff. He hangs around the gas station out by Route 9. Big guy, wears suspenders. Can't miss him. Emily didn't wait. She drove straight to the station, and sure enough, there was an old man with a salt and pepper beard, standing beside the vending machine talking about deer season. She introduced herself and showed the photo. Pete squinted, scratched his head, and muttered, "That brings back some dust." You recognize him? Emily asked, pulse picking up. Can't say for sure, but yeah, I remember we had a guy picked up near the lake that fall. Said he didn't remember who he was. Wouldn't speak, eyes darting all over the place like he was expecting to get jumped. We couldn't ID him. No wallet, nothing. We called county social services. They sent him to a psychiatric intake facility upstate. Where? Pete looked hesitant. I don't think I should be giving that out. I'm his daughter. I've been looking for him for 16 years. Pete sighed, clearly torn. He reached into the breast pocket of his flannel shirt and pulled out a pen, then scribbled an address on the back of an old lottery ticket. Try St. Augustine Psychiatric Hospital. They renamed it to Lakeshore Mental Health a few years back. It's private now, but that's where we sent him. He might not be there anymore, but it's a place to start. Emily held the scrap of paper like it was gold. Thank you. She drove back to Trenton that night, with more fire in her gut than ever before. She didn't go back to work the next day. Instead, she spent it gathering everything she could on Lakeshore. It was hard to find public information, barely any photos, no updated patient list. Most of what she found came from lawsuits, wrongful confinement, mistreatment, patient privacy violations. The place sounded like a fortress. Still, she wasn't going to let it go. She typed up a request for information, attached a copy of her father's missing person report, and faxed it to the hospital under the guise of seeking medical history for family health background. A week passed, then two, nothing. On the third week, a letter came. No return address, just a typewritten sheet of paper with one sentence: "No patient under the name Daniel Ward has ever been admitted." She knew it was a lie. The letter was too careful, too cold. No contact number, no offer of help, just a flat denial. She decided to go there herself. In early November, Emily drove to Lakeshore. It sat on the edge of a wooded ridge, surrounded by fences and fogged over security cameras. A nurse at the front desk asked for her appointment slip. Emily lied, said she was there for a job interview. The nurse made a call, frowned, and shook her head. "No interviews scheduled today. I'll have to ask you to leave." Emily went back to her car, frustrated but not defeated. She waited until nightfall, then walked the perimeter of the property. The rear side faced the woods. There was a loading dock for laundry and supply trucks. She jotted it down in a notebook. She didn't know what she was planning yet, but she knew she'd be back. Over the next month, she returned several times. Once she saw a patient walking the inside perimeter, escorted by a guard. The man was older, thin, with long graying hair, and a slouch in his step. For a moment her heart leapt, but the man turned his face, and it wasn't him. The obsession grew. At night, Emily would sketch floor plans based on what she saw. She mapped out security lights, supply entrances, trash pickup times. She wasn't crazy, she was determined, and she was getting close. What she didn't know was that someone inside the hospital had noticed her. By 2006, Emily Ward had grown sharper, tougher, and more determined than ever. She was 31 now, no longer the young woman squinting at newspaper clippings or waiting for polite responses from hospitals. She had spent the last 5 years trying to get answers from Lakeshore Mental Health, and every single attempt had been blocked. They wouldn't confirm or deny anything anymore. They simply stopped responding. She knew there was something inside that building they didn't want her to see. Emily wasn't reckless. She didn't jump into things without a plan. So for months, she studied the routines of the hospital from a nearby wooded trail. She even posed as a dog walker, taking her neighbor's Labrador along a path that curved just behind the east wing. That's when she noticed the laundry trucks. They arrived every Thursday morning between 6:30 and 6:45. Same driver, same route. On one occasion, the rear door was left open for a few seconds. She saw bins of bed sheets, uniforms, and plastic carts. That was her way in. Emily tracked the company. The trucks were contracted out from a facility just outside of Albany. She drove up there one evening and parked across the street. She waited until the building grew quiet and a lone worker stepped out to smoke. She followed him into a diner later and struck up casual conversation. His name was Troy. She said her name was Amy, told him she used to work in healthcare and was thinking of coming back. It took 3 nights of casual chats before he let something slip. They don't check IDs too hard. Half the guys just show up and ask for work, especially on Fridays when they're behind. That was all she needed. The following Friday, Emily wore a gray hoodie, steel-toed boots, and a pair of scuffed work pants. She showed up at the laundry center, asking if they needed hands. Troy recognized her, smiled, and waved her in. By Monday, she was helping load carts onto trucks. She kept her head down, watched everything. After 2 weeks, she volunteered for the Thursday Lakeshore route at 6:20 a.m. She rode in the passenger seat beside a driver named Alto, a quiet man in his 60s who liked country music and didn't ask questions. When they reached the facility, security barely glanced at them. Emily slipped on a surgical mask and pushed carts through the delivery dock. Inside the laundry room, the walls were sterile white. She could hear muffled sounds from the floors above, doors closing, footsteps, someone shouting far down a hallway. She moved fast, pretending to restock towels, but all the while looking for any glimpse of the patients. And then she saw him. A man was being guided down the hallway by a nurse. He was thin, scruffy, head-shaved in patches. He walked slow, as if each step was a struggle, but it was his eyes that stopped her cold. They were the same eyes as the man in her photo. The man turned his head slightly. Their eyes met for half a second. She felt her stomach tighten. Could it be? She reached for her phone to snap a photo, but the nurse yelled, "Hey, you can't be here." This hallway's restricted. Emily nodded quickly and pushed her cart the other way. Her heart was racing. She had to get out of there without drawing more attention. That night she sat in her apartment, staring at the blurry shot she'd taken from her hip. The man's face was half-shadowed, but something in his posture, his brow, it felt real. She blew the image up, printed it, compared it to the lake photo from 1985. The chin, the shape of the eyes. It wasn't proof, but it was enough. She had to get in deeper. So she did the unthinkable. She quit her job, changed her last name on all her new documents to Emily Clark, and applied for an open janitorial position at Lakeshore. She faked references, cleaned up her resume. It took 3 weeks, but they called her for an interview. The inside of the hospital was even more unsettling than she'd imagined. There were long, dim hallways, locked doors, patients who shuffled quietly or sat staring at the floor. The staff weren't cruel, but they weren't warm either. It was a place for people to be forgotten. The manager, a woman named Diane, interviewed her. "The work isn't glamorous," she warned. "You'll be cleaning bathrooms, pushing mop carts, hauling trash." Still interested? Emily nodded. "I need the job." 2 days later she was hired. The staff break room became her new headquarters. She took notes discreetly, memorized door codes, learned patient routines. She waited for another glimpse of the man in the hallway. For nearly a month, nothing. Then one night during her shift on the second floor, she passed a locked room and heard a sound, soft tapping, like knuckles against wood. She paused. No voices, no footsteps, just tapping. The door had no name on it, just a number, C107. She pushed her mop bucket further down the hall and pretended to scrub, keeping her eyes on the surveillance mirror angled at the hallway corner. No one was watching. She went back to the door. She knelt, pretending to tie her boot, and whispered under the crack, "Daniel Ward." Silence. She tried again. "Dad, it's me, Emily." There was a pause, then a faint, breathless whisper, "Emily." Her heart stopped, but before she could say another word, a voice boomed behind her. Hey. Security guard stood at the far end of the hall. "This wing is off limits after hours. What are you doing?" She stood quickly. "Sorry, I thought someone spilled water near the door, was just checking." "Get out of this hallway, now." Emily pushed her cart down the hall, her hands shaking. That night she barely slept. The voice had been real. Weak, broken, but real. She was sure of it. The next day she came in early and searched the maintenance logbook. There was no listing for C107, no scheduled cleaning, no patient name, nothing, as if the room didn't exist on paper. Emily knew she had to act fast. She didn't know how long she had before they caught on. She found an empty utility closet near the end of the hallway and stashed a spare uniform, keys, and her phone inside. She began mapping out an escape plan, not just to speak to him again, but to get him out. And she wasn't the only one moving in secret. The next morning, a folded piece of paper had been slid under her locker. It had no name, just a simple warning written in shaky handwriting. "They don't want you to find him. Watch your back." Emily stood in the break room with the folded paper still clutched in her hand. "They don't want you to find him." The warning stayed with her. Every glance in her direction now felt loaded. She started noticing patterns, staff exchanging quick looks when she passed, the head nurse whispering whenever she clocked in early. Something had shifted, but she wasn't backing out. She couldn't. Emily's father had been missing since 1985. For years she thought he was dead. And now, after all the searching, all the questions and heartbreak, he was just a few doors away, locked in room C107, hidden like a secret the world wanted to forget. She had to get to him. But not just that, she had to get him out. Her plan started small. She began bringing him little things. First, a paper napkin slipped under the door with "I'm here" scribbled in pencil. Then a soft granola bar broken in half, just so he had something different from the dry, flavorless hospital food. She didn't hear from him for days, until one night she heard the tapping again. Slow, deliberate, 3 soft knocks. She crouched down beside the door. "Dad, it's really me. I'm not going to leave you." Silence. Then a voice, cracked and hoarse. "Emily?" She swallowed the lump in her throat. "I'm going to get you out." Inside, she heard a faint cry. It was the sound of someone who hadn't said their daughter's name in 25 years. Over the next few weeks, she watched and waited. Room C-107 was checked by only 2 nurses, both older, one with a limp. Neither stayed long. Medication trays were always left at the door, never hand-delivered. Whoever they thought Daniel Ward was, they weren't treating him as dangerous, just forgotten. Emily quietly studied the building's emergency evacuation plan taped near the stairwell. One route led to an old staff entrance, half blocked with broken equipment, but still technically a way out. It was alarmed, yes, but only at night. During morning shift change, the alarm was disabled for about 7 minutes to allow maintenance staff to move heavy carts in and out. 7 minutes. That was her window. She stashed a nurse uniform in her locker, one size too big but close enough. She also managed to make a copy of the hallway keys, something she did quickly during one of the supervisor's smoke breaks using a clay mold and a quiet locksmith downtown who didn't ask questions. The night before the escape, she slid one last note under the door: "Tomorrow morning, be ready." She barely slept that night. Her hands shook as she dressed in the uniform and clipped her badge on. Her shift began at 6 a.m. She moved quietly, focused. At exactly 6:40 a.m., the hospital's morning buzz began, phones ringing, carts rattling, nurses greeting each other through yawns and coffee. Emily walked calmly to the east hallway, passing a janitor who nodded without thinking. She held her breath as she reached room C-107 and slipped in the copied key. Click. The door opened with a low creak. Her father sat hunched on a thin mattress, blinking against the sudden hallway light. He looked thinner than before. Gray hair lined his jaw, but his eyes, those same eyes, met hers and filled with tears. "Emily," he whispered, like he was still trying to believe it. "No time," she said, grabbing his arm. "Can you walk?" He nodded slowly. She threw her lab coat over his hospital gown, pulled a cap down over his head, and guided him out. Each step was a gamble. Each footfall could mean discovery, but the hallway was clear. They moved down the corridor, keeping pace with a noisy cart ahead of them. At the stairwell, Emily keyed in the code 8194. The door clicked open. They moved fast. Her father limped slightly, but adrenaline was carrying him now. They made it to the service entrance just as a delivery truck was backing in. Emily waved casually to the driver, pushed open the old exit door, and they were out. She led him through the narrow alley behind the building, behind a row of trash bins, then across a small back lot toward her parked car. No one shouted. No one followed. Inside the car, she turned the key. The engine hesitated, then roared to life. They pulled out of the lot, onto the street, and just kept driving. 15 minutes passed before either of them spoke. He looked at her, trembling. I thought I was dead. They told me no one was looking for me. No one remembered." She gripped the wheel tighter. They lied. Emily brought him to a small rented cabin 2 towns over. It wasn't much, just a single bedroom and a heater that rattled when it turned on. But it was safe. No cameras, no visitors, just space to breathe. Over the next few days, he slowly began to tell her what happened. He'd been in a car accident in 1985, just a few days after his brother died. He was driving late at night with Emily asleep in the back seat, when a truck clipped the rear of the car on a rain-slicked road. He remembered crawling from the wreckage to try and find help, but something happened. "I must have collapsed," he said. "Next thing I know, I'm in a hospital bed. No one told me where I was. I asked for you. I kept asking for you. But they told me I had no daughter." Emily's jaw clenched. "They said I was delusional, that I'd imagined a family that didn't exist. At first I fought back, but they kept drugging me. Every time I tried to talk about you, they increased my meds. After a while, I stopped." Her chest tightened. "You didn't imagine me. I looked for you for 25 years. He cried then, and she held him, just like she had dreamed of doing so many nights as a child. Emily contacted a lawyer 2 weeks later. She didn't give her name, just stated she had a family member who had been institutionalized under false identity. She asked for advice. The lawyer sounded stunned. He said she needed to gather evidence, medical records, birth certificates, anything that proved his real identity. It took months, but piece by piece, they built the case. Photos, fingerprints, even an old bank card that proved Daniel Ward's existence. By the time they came forward, the hospital had already started facing scrutiny for other patient complaints. Eventually, A hearing was held, doctors were questioned, records were reviewed, and the truth came out. A clerical error in 1985 had listed Daniel Ward as a John Doe, without proper ID at the time of the accident, and no family able to locate him. He was placed in long-term care under a false name. Over time, the system simply forgot him. The story hit local news. Man missing for 25 years found alive in mental hospital. Emily didn't do interviews. She didn't need the attention. All she wanted was her father home. And finally, after all those years of wondering, waiting and searching, he was. If you like this story, make sure to like and subscribe. Also another to strengthen our community. Let us know in the comments where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video.